Hello, fellow fourth grade teachers. My name is Mrs. Wolf, and I thank you for joining me today as I present to you some questioning strategies that you can use to promote higher order skills, stimulate discussion, and promote inquiry among your fourth grade students. Today, I will be talking about the different levels of depth of knowledge and outline the use of questioning strategies, assessments, and digital tools. I will also provide some examples of probing questions from a sample of a fourth grade social studies lesson that is based on the standards here in Utah that also integrates a fourth grade art standard. So first I'd like to discuss the depth of knowledge, which is a framework that supports higher order thinking and assessment by focusing on the complexity of mental processing. It has 4 levels, beginning with level 1, recall and reproduction. This is the basic level in which students simply recall information from instructions such as facts, definitions, or perform a one-step formula. Some action verbs most associated with level 1 include identify, define, and name, all in which a student is just restating information. Level 2 progresses to the student's engagement of mental processing alongside habitual response. Rather than just one step of repeating facts, this level requires deeper thought and data collection, comparing, classifying, and demonstrating set procedures. Some action verbs most associated with level 2 include apply, solve, and interpret. Level 3 involves more strategic thinking, as the name suggests. Students engage in planning and must explain their thought process. The Wisconsin Department of Public Information states that in level 3, students would be given an activity that has more than one answer, and they must justify their response. Action words for level 3 include compare, infer, and contrast. Finally, level 4, which is extended thinking, is the highest level in which students engage in complex cognitive thought. The Wisconsin Department of Education again states that level 4 processing is usually over an extended period of time involving several variables in which the work is very complex, requiring a high level of cognitive demand, integrating information from multiple content areas. Some action words that identify level 4 include design, collect, and develop. So the following slides include probing questions for each DOK level, in which the teacher could ask that appropriately measure students' depth of knowledge according to what the standard outlines they should know. Again, these examples are regarding a fourth grade lesson on a unit study of the different cultures that compose Utah's heritage and the different artifacts each culture used to live. The questions listed on this slide are simple ones in which the students can recall from the textbook readings. An example of level 1 could include, what was a moccasin used for? What is an archaeologist? What is an artifact? Questions here were formed to encourage students to remember what they read, but also align to the standard for the lesson, which is students will understand how Utah's history has been shaped by many diverse people, events, and ideas. This question reinforces the different artifacts that the Native Americans that inhabited the Utah land before the immigrants. It gives students knowledge about them as well as ideas for the integrated art standard, which is create works of art that reflect community cultural traditions. Students will be selecting an artifact and then choose an art medium in which to create that artifact. Level 2 questions are developed to encourage students to begin thinking deeper about the livelihood of Utah's early peoples and compare it to their daily lives today. According to Roy 2023, an inference relies on analysis and evaluation, where students anticipate the possible outcome based on given information. Here they've read all about the different artifacts that were found by archaeologists, and the questions in level 2 encourage them to then think about the evidence and make inferences about the Native Americans' way of life. So some examples of level 2 questions could include, if you were to suddenly move and leave everything you own, what could someone many years from now learn about you? What can you infer from the evidence that was found by archaeologists about the early people who lived in Utah? Given a map, which group of people that we have learned of lived closest to you? Describe the importance of the buffalo to the Shoshones and the Utes. What were they used for? The questions here allow students to apply the experiences they've learned of from the topic and then apply it to their own familiar situations. It also has students take information they've learned of different cultures and go one step further to compare the different groups of people. Probing questions at the DOK level 3 are gradually more complex than the previous levels, as they require planning and the use of evidence to not just share an answer of how or why, but give a justification of how or why. Some of these examples include some tribes lived in groups and farmed rather than following the herds. What kind of home or shelter would have been best for them? Hogan, teepee, or wicca? Describe a type of Native American home and explain what about it could have been a problem. Why? Which type of Native American dwelling would you like to live in and why? These questions go beyond a simple textbook response and engage students in higher order of thought. They must first recall what they've learned and then decide on a response with justification. Finally, the last DOK level 4 requires the most complex thinking in which students may make connections, investigate, experiment, and apply what they've learned to a real world context. Some of these examples include, how would you explain how Utah's history has been shaped by many diverse people? Now, this question is exactly what the lesson standard reads. So, and it requires a higher level of extended thinking. Another is, what can you infer about the Utes' cultural beliefs based on the artifacts and ceremonies they performed? Remember, the American Indian groups only had spoken language with no alphabet to write it down. How would your life be different if you did not have a written language? Explain. The questions on this slide require students to really think deeply and make inferences of the Native American cultures that they've learned of throughout this lesson. Assessment is a large part of learning as it communicates data to the teacher of students' understanding of the concepts. Both formative and summative assessments are recommended as they provide feedback at different points of instruction. It is the teacher's responsibility to ensure that they are meeting all students' needs. And a formative assessment is a great low stake tool to help determine if those students' needs are met. It is imperative that the teacher begins lesson planning with assessments in mind in order to appropriately plan instruction. As stated in the learning activity justification from my sample integrated lesson, students will be assessed based on their group performance and participation, the artifacts that they create, as well as the presentation of their projects. The questions on the previous slides include questions that are appropriate for both formative and summative assessments. One way these questions can be utilized in a formative assessment is by allowing each by following each lesson, the teacher can provide an exit ticket, and it can be composed of 2 to 3 questions, possibly 4, that are at the DOK level 1, in which students just recall basic concepts from the lesson. And recall and reiterate what they learned from the lesson. Another question on the exit ticket could be at a higher DOK level so that the teacher can get a more comprehensive understanding of the student's understanding. Because the students are working collaboratively during much of this activity, it's important that the teacher gets a good measure on each individual student's understanding. A summative assessment for this activity will be rubric-based, a grading rubric, in which the teacher grades each individual on their group involvement, their artifact, and their presentation of research. According to Northern Illinois University 2012, grading rubrics improve students' ability to include required elements of an assignment. With this being a collaborative research assignment, partially students will benefit from having a rubric available to ensure that they know what the teacher is looking for in every facet of the learning activity. And so shown on this slide are examples of what an exit ticket could look like and what a grading rubric could look like. Lastly, this slide offers two digital tools that you can incorporate into your lesson to promote engagement and stimulate discussion. One digital tool that can be used to encourage students to engage in critical thinking and develop their own higher order questions is through an app called Flipgrid. It's a great platform to post a discussion question, have students ask and answer each other's questions, and it just keeps things fun and exciting and the conversation going. Another similar platform is called Padlet. It's also a virtual platform and it's like a bulletin board in which students can pretty much do the same thing. They upload videos, images, and posts. And again, it keeps things exciting and fun and keeps everybody motivated to learn. I encourage you to utilize digital tools in your classroom. And for a learning activity such as the example I shared that involves collaborative learning, students can also utilize interactive whiteboards and or tablets for the research portion of the activity. Research shows that by incorporating technology, you can significantly enhance the learning experience. Um, the last two slides are just references from research that I did to complete this presentation. I thank you all for joining me today as I discussed a variety of questioning strategies to engage students' depth of knowledge and promote problem solving and higher order thinking. Please feel free to ask questions, and I hope that this presentation was informative and left you asking questions of your own regarding your teaching practice and how you can improve. Thank you.